Hey Pete, we're here at Gary, and there's Gary in the doorway here. Let's go inside to see what's going on here. Come on, Pete, I'll follow you.
Come on in, guys.
Dano Live, Dano Vision. We're in Woodland Hills. We're at Gary Wells' house. It's
a little different than your normal. Well, it's kind of Abbey normal, but this is what I like, and I enjoy this. It's all made by the loving hand of man. You know, some of the crazy things that. You gotta have a fan to move the air.
You gotta have a fan. Might as well have a cool fan.
It used to do a 180, but during the earthquake it crashed. So that kind of killed that deal. All right, let me invite you in, guys.
Alrighty. Go ahead, Pete.
Please come on in.
Oh yeah.
Don't mind the noise. This silly thing makes.
Wow.
Turn on
stained glass. Look at that beautiful stained glass.
Those are all real glass.
Yeah. Wow. A kitchen to die for, ladies. Look at this. Wow. Step down.
It's just kind of a little different.
Yeah.
You can never guess which part of the house I added on to after the earthquake. This one here.
This would be it, huh?
I had made it a sunken kitchen, but actually it's kind of like the stern of a ship.
Yeah.
That's the same as the front garage. It's that kind of a configuration. Thus the portholes on the sides.
Right, huh?
They give you a little fresh air if you want it. Lets the birds in anyhow.
Wow. Now this is a kitchen.
A little different.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I like the idea of step down.
This is the lady that caused it all to happen.
Right.
That's her winning in Santa Barbara with one of the boat tails, and Andreas with the other one. That was Marilyn.
Marilyn.
Again, Marilyn here. Anyway.
And did Marilyn play the piano here, or is this something you do?
Yeah, I was here, a little party for one of the last of the Romanovs that came from Russia, Moscow, and he was here with his wife, the Grand Duchess, and they had asked me if I'd host him for the night. We had a hell of a party, and a lot of champagne, a lot of vodka, needless to say. But anyhow, this is my house. You're certainly welcome. My wife used to play the piano. I never could.
Jeez, Gary.
A little bit different.
Wow. Now I know each piece has a story, I'm sure.
Everything has a story. That right here, this was done in about 1907 or so. That's the number 37 200 horsepower Fiat. And that's a painting done of the first race ever held on an enclosed track. And that's the Wagner car. And what's interesting about it is that the hotel that was right near where that track was, they had it painted and had it on their wall. Well, Charlie Shellbaum, who was probably the great guy in automobilia, was kind of a guy that would walk in and say, I like that. And they told him the story. He said, well, that's wonderful. How much do you want for it? He said, it's not for sale, Charlie. How much would you? I'd really like to have that. No, it's not for sale. I'd really like to have that. Well, you know, we've had... That was it. That's how Charlie got things like that.
Wow.
So anyhow, that's kind of important. This is an interesting painting. This is an American painting that was done back in 1850s. And this was a balloonist. And that is Captain Preston. In his air-driven machines. Isn't that incredible? And it's in the original frame and everything. Got it at a little local auction, went for zip, because they didn't know what it was.
Had no idea.
Nobody was interested in it. So that's pretty important.
Wow. We got Knights of Armor guarding the fireplace.
Yeah, everything in here is authentic. Lots of arms and armor and, oh God, you name it.
In the stained glass, it's something you guys did?
Yeah, I had that done. That was, I had a gal for 6 months. She did have, there's not a straight window in the whole joint. And that's the Horseman of the Apocalypse, and it's just a little bit of everything.
Wow, look at that chest.
The barrel here is a grog barrel from a British man of war in the 1860s. It's the stories behind these things. It's not the owning of them. It's what I live to do is to tell these stories to people. I enjoy it. Just something. This, for instance, is a little Roman short sword. It didn't come from Rome. It came from England. When Julius Caesar went over in around 50 BC to fight Vercingetorix, the Gauls, and this was found there. There it is. Can you imagine? You're holding something. How's that for history? That was Julius Caesar's troops.
Wow.
And he did the unthinkable. He marched into Rome with his legions and declared himself emperor. Ended up. And that was a no-no. And consequently, ite brute, we've come to bury Caesar, not praise him. The evil that men do live after him. The good is often interred in their bones. They murdered him. So you don't want to do things like that. So, just all sorts of unusual things.
Small cannon.
I saw a fellow in Beverly Hills one time in his shop, and he had a barrel of swords, and I said, my God, how cool is that? So I had to copy
You had to have a barrel of swords. I can't say I ever saw a barrel of swords.
No. Not many people have it. Some of the pieces are kind of interesting. This is about 1600, and this is called the Death's Head mask. And what makes these interesting is that if you look at these, you can see what they were for. And this one here was for when you would attack a fortified position, and they would throw rocks and hot oil and whatever down on you, and they put these in to scare the hell out of people. But that would protect them a little bit, along with the rest of the armor. This is a Maximilian Grotesque, about 1470. And this had been a fighting helmet, but it had taken a mortal blow, and they didn't do welding in those days. So they riveted it, it lost its integrity, and it wasn't strong enough for that. So they made a Maximilian Grotesque. Maximilian was the emperor at the time, and he had this big Doniker of a nose, and that's why you can tell it. Then it had little deer's ears and boar's things and the tongue, you know, and the horns, and they would wear that for parades and that. And it's quite effective. Now this is just a regular fighting helmet. All sorts of full suit of armor weighed approximately 65 pounds or so. This one came out of Germany. It's a very heavy piece, but it was one of those things where it's Christ on the cross, the night praying to him, which is my wife loved it. She was a Catholic, and she just fell in love with that. And I said, you got it. And so we got it from a picker in Germany. The chair, this here is from the 1860s. It was used by the Army, Navy, and it was the campaign chairs for the generals. And they would sit up on the hill and direct the battles and things like that. It's crazy. Jeez. Then this is a Maximilian. This particular one is about 1500, this blade. Conquistador stirrups, fighting helmet. Just all sorts of, this one I get a kick out of. This is a good story. This is Italian, 17th century. Here's what's interesting. It has 10 pips on it. That means it was used 10 times to take someone's life.
Wow. Jeez. My God.
Isn't that a piece?
That's a piece.
Just interesting stories. All the axes are 13th to 16th century fighting axes. I have 10 of them. And they came from a friend of mine in Germany who, he gave me that little piece of suit of armor. And his family goes back 1,000 years. Dieter von Hohenberg. And his family sold what is now Baden-Württemberg, Germany. That was their fiefdom. And they sold it for 600,000 gold florins back in the 1860s when they brought and unified Germany. And he was kind of ticked off about the whole thing because he ended up with a Schloss and a couple burgs. And that was it, no money. So he, being a local prince, he would hold little Oktoberfest and weddings and parties and that in his place. He wanted to expand on the kitchen, so he ended up selling me some of the killing axes, which is kind of funny.
Your mantle here on this fireplace, oh, there's carvings. So, yeah.
This is Chinese. This is Ming Dynasty. I think that's Sun Dynasty. These are cute little things. These are called Caltrops. And they made these by the thousands. And if you were in the castle, they would throw them out on the ground and people would come charging up. And no matter where you throw it,
right,
you got to spike up. And naturally, there was some nasty stuff on these spikes, you can imagine. Huh. And that would stop man or horse. So they're kind of a silly little thing, but they sure did their job. Sure did their job. But all the different swords now. This is German. How's that for a sword?
Jeez. Damn. It looks like
that's a heck of a sword.
Looks like it's got some weight to it.
And you notice the big wanks in the blades.
Yeah.
These are used. I like things that were actually used. I have a few examples of pieces that you can't get. So, but this is a big sword. And how this was used, they'd take the biggest guy in the company and he would swing it around like a scythe. And then his other guys would be under him going like this and they would go into the pack. Kind of cool. I have everything from Indians stuff. These are the real deals.
Yeah.
And they would mark it. That was the Indian's mark, so he knew whose arrow it was. And you can see some of them, these are all originals. They all are kind of cool things.
Jeez.
Little bits of everything here.
And your fireplace front, the detail, the carvings.
Yes,
yeah.
French. That's a copy of a 17th century French piece. This I always thought was interesting. So what a crazy looking thing. Somebody made their own little knife and their own little carrier for it.
Jeez.
Isn't that something? You didn't go to the store in those days.
Yeah, no.
And if you were a young man or a kid or something, you would make your own thing. And there it was, and they would carry it down here.
Yeah. No five and dimes back then.
I love things like that are, actually good, interesting pieces. A couple pieces I'd like to show you here that I think you get a big kick out of is this one is from 1490s. It's Spanish, very heavy, and it has Spanish Latin on here and a cartouche. This is one and two known. One is in the Museum of Madrid, and this one here. And it's basically, it's when what the cartouche says is they had fought the Muslims and El Cid, this was at that time, and had chased them out of Catholic Spain. And it was a period of history. That's what it was. Jeez. Saladin was its period. This was that one. This one is kind of interesting. And this goes into a kind of a lengthy story, but I won't get into it real heavy. But I got it from a gentleman on the south of the boulevard. I had been trying to buy this particular painting from a friend of mine for 30 years. He wouldn't sell it, and it was the Beast of Turin. I'll show it to you in a second. And he said, you'll get it before I die, you'll get it before I die. And for 30 years, he's told me that. And finally, he came over and he said, Gary, here's the painting. And it was rolled up under his bed. He never took it out from under his bed, only once to show me. And I bought it from him, and he was dead in 30 days. It was really kind of sad. And so I wanted to have it framed, simple frame, which is right in here. Let me show you. And might as well do it while we're here. This is the Beast of Turin. It was painted in 1911. That is the 28.5-liter 4-cylinder Fiat that did 130 miles an hour in New York State in 1911 when they thought your face would blow off at 70. And this is no joke. This was the period. This is an exact, well, close as I can get, a copy of the original photograph that was taken. You see it in many places. And so I took this painting up to the fellow on south of the boulevard. He's in his 80s, he and his wife, and they restore paintings and that. And he's from Hungary. And when I walked in, I saw this. And I said, oh, my God, I got to have it. He said, no, you can't. No, that's one of the 6 items my wife and I were able to take out of Hungary when the communists took over or got purged. So anyhow, he got it the hell out of there. And, you know, it's about 25 pounds of silver. And I said, what is it? He said, well, we think it's either, you know, it's Hungarian or Italian, blah, blah, blah. And so anyhow, I've taken it out many, many times. I wanted it. Man, I wanted it so bad I could taste it. And I called this guy every month for months and months and months. And I called him up. Hi, it's Mr. Wills. I'd sure like to. Yeah, get out, get out. Boom, boom, boom. Finally, I wore him down. He said, okay, come and get the darn thing. So I went over there, had a whole pile of money. I thought, well, I don't want to miss this one. I went over, I said, what's it going to take? What's it going to take? And he reached over and he goes, that'll do.
Oh, wow.
That's what it'll do. So anyhow, he framed this for me. On the back it says, by his cockpit style ye shall know him. And this is Felice Nazaro, who was the factory driver from 1900 on for Fiat for their early great cars. And I also have a couple of pieces that were his. But anyhow, now I got the darn sword. We checked it out, and everybody said, most people I talked to said, we think that this is a bearing sword. This was carried by your yeoman or your man to show your princess who he was. And he would carry in front of him, that was his steel. And if you look at it, you'll see it's a battle scene. Anyhow, the consensus of opinion, it's from Romania. Well, who was the Prince of Romania in the 1470s?
This is a quiz I fail.
Vlad Tepes. Vlad the Impaler, Dracula, son of Dracula. So we don't know if it is, we don't know if it ain't, but it's a hell of a story.
Right.
How many people have got one?
Yeah.
This is it. Blade isn't anything. It's a lousy blade, but it wasn't for the blade. It was to carry.
Yeah.
To show the authority of your prince. But it's a great story.
Oh, boy.
I love telling it. Anyway, this is my pub. This is the only one-bedroom house in Woodland Hills, I think. We kicked the wall out, put it in, and made it into a pub. And it's kind of my office pub. And this one, not a barrel, this is in an elephant's foot. But it's an old elephant's foot. And it was done 100 years ago. Anyway, just these are some of my different cars that we did on the windows. There's no straight window in the joint. It's all different. Everything is completely different.
Wow, Gary.
Come on in.
Nice trophies.
I don't know how much you want me to bore you, but I got tons of stories.
We're not bored. Wow.
This wheel is from a Sopwith Camel, which is a World War I Brit fighting plane. This is a skin off of a Bristol. Off of an old lacquered linen.
Jeez.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, really, when you think about it, I mean, everybody needs one of these. Goes along with the dog with the infected ear, cooler, a hot top. This is interesting. This is about 160 pounds, and it's from a British man of war. It was their treasure chest. And they carried all their important papers and their money and everything in that. So, but if they got into a tight spot and they looked like they were going to lose, they'd take it and drop it over the side because it weighed 160 pounds. It's cast in a cannonball factory. And it's just big, heavy iron. Now, the funny part of it was dug up on the beach in Santa Barbara.
Ah.
Now, what the hell was that doing? You're talking 1700s. And there it was. Isn't that something? This, another example of people doing crazy things. Tom Barrett Jackson. Tom was a good friend of mine, and he had gone over to England. He was in the Queen Gates Mews in Chelsea, which is where the Queen's kept all her cars, and this was the garage in there. And he went in there, and Tom was kind of a cool guy, and he said, "I'd sure like to have a lot of them shields." So anyhow, he said, "Oh no, Mr. Barrett, you just can't buy the shields off the Queen's car and the Dukes." And he said, "Well, here's what I'd like to do." And he takes out a big wad, and he ended up buying the Queen of England's, Princess Margaret's, the Duke of Edinburgh, and the Prince of Wales. Anyhow, I ended up with them.
Jeez.
And I got rid of the other ones, but I did save this one here. I had it for a long time. But this was Prince of Wales, and this was on his automobile. It was used by HRH Prince Charles on the date of his investiture, July 1st, 69, at the Carnarvon Castle, and it features the hand-painted sign. This was his on the shield in his car.
Wow.
I mean, and the one that people really wanted, not the Queen's, not the Duke of Edinburgh, Princess Margaret's. Anyway, that was another unusual little thing. Somebody's got to have it, so it falls to me, I guess.
Yeah.
And then badges. I like regalia and bling bling, as you can tell.
And a lot of mugs.
And this is part of the bling bling. I used to have 9,000. I'm down to about 4,000 pieces here now. But they commemorate everything. This is interesting. This is, they didn't break the mold, okay? This was the last original Lincoln doggy that was ever done. And I have the Pierce Arrow one out on the post in front. And they came in 2 pieces. And that's amazing. That proves it. Now, interesting, now there's car badges for everything. They commemorate car clubs, events, you name it, they have it. Here's one that's a bit of Hollywood. And this is the Paramount Studios Sports Car Club. Okay? And here's the patch. These were given to the hookers in the 40s on their car or on their jacket, and they could come in and take care of the various producers and directors and so forth, and and visit. And that's the original deals.
That was all before #MeToo.
Isn't that unbelievable? I mean, this is the stuff that I find interesting. It's the stories. And of course you had Brooklyns, and I had all the Brooklyns and just tons of this stuff. But it's all important and it's all fun.
That's drawers and drawers of this.
Oh, I've got thousands. I've got about 4,000 left, so, if anyone is going to need this stuff someday.
Wow.
It should go into a museum or go to somebody that's going to display it, because my family really aren't into this type of thing.
Well, I think they ought to make your residence here to museum.
Yeah. If you want to give it. Well, I didn't get any of these things given to me. I had to buy them all.
Yeah.
This here goes back to, prior to World War I. This is really early stuff. And I've got lots of that.
Pretty cool how you have all this old stuff mixed in with Portland AAA.
Oh, I've got everything in here. Oh, the AAA stuff. I bought the guy that had the company. And I bought out all of the old pieces. And these were the ones the AAA ones that you see were the ones that they used to check to see if the ones that they were doing perfectly. And I had hundreds of them. I'm down a few. But a few things like this one here. The Iraqi. That's the early ones. I got some really kind of interesting stuff. These are Russian. one of them. This one here, Penang Flying Club. I mean, can you imagine how many of these things have survived? Why I collected them is that they're beautiful works of art.
Yeah.
Royal East Africa Automobile Association. But it's a lovely thing. This was prior, this is AA, and this was before the AA, Automotive Association, or RAC, and that combined, and this is the Motor Union. This is an old original, very old original one. That's from the 1890s and so forth. But they're just filled. See, now this one here, this is all new stock, brand new, that had never been used. And I have a lot of those still left. But it's the perfect little ornamentation. It's the little things that women put on, that little bit of jewelry and that makes it interesting. People always, you know, you can have a car collection with 50 of the most magnificent cars in the world. I remember being in Mulsanne, Bugattis. And the first one I spent 15 minutes looking at. And then the second one, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. I couldn't run out of the place fast enough at the end. There was nothing that I could really relate to other than beautiful things. But it's all the little things. You may have, somebody will come in this house and, yeah, it's cool, cool. But then they'll find, oh my God, my father had one of these on his, and that's the thing he remembered.